Hi, welcome to Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris. Tonight we will be looking at the floods as Malaysia is experiencing one of the worst flood crises seen in the last decade. Last week saw 150,000 people evacuated and tragically lives lost. Now, while many have returned to their destroyed homes as floodwaters receded, the Malaysian Met Department has warned of a second wave, a monsoon surge likely to occur December 8th to the 14th on the East Coast. Shah Hussain joins us now from Kampung Air Dingin Tumpat, Kelantan, and he is the head of the Global Operations for Mercy Malaysia, which has been providing emergency response efforts to aid in the severe flooding crisis. Shah, thank you for being on the show with me and sharing your observations. Talk to us about what you're seeing. What are you seeing on the ground in terms of the immediate needs of the affected communities?
Thank you, Astro, AWANI, for having us in this current situation that we are facing. Mercy Malaysia has been on the ground since last Wednesday. Last Thursday, actually, we arrived in Kota Baru. We immediately went to Tumpat and also Pasir Mas to do our assessment. And from then on, we have started to respond on the ground, distributing non-food items, the NFI, for those who are staying in the evacuation center. We have extended to a little bit of food parcel, food distribution, not much, but as and when we did the assessment, that's what we sort of distributed on the go. But for the last 5 days, we have been mobilizing our mobile clinic team. So far, we have been to about 10 evacuation center, and today we are at Air Dingin Tumpat, another PPS in Kalabaran. Another team is also running around in Pasir Mas, in 3 evacuation center to provide health needs services.
Right. Shah, the mobile clinics that you've dispatched, are you concerned about the spread of infectious diseases from the floodwaters?
Yes. So, in the initial assessment, from the observation, we were a bit concerned about the infectious disease and also the waterborne disease, the spread of this kind of illness. But credit has got to be given to the State Health Department and also the District Health Department for preparing, mitigation measures to curb or to minimize the spread of these diseases. And I'm sure everyone knows that the waterborne and also the infectious disease normally will start during the post flood when they return homes, with the disaster that has happened at their houses.
Right.
So at the evacuation center, yes, a lot of measures have been taken by the District Health Department. For us, NGO, we come in to complement and to also distribute cleaning kits, specifically to be used in toilets and also in kitchen where they prep their food and for lunch and dinner.
What's in these cleaning kits, Shah?
These are basically detergents for toilets, to cleaning toilets, mixture of a couple of items that you use to clean up toilets, and also a couple of other items that is required in kitchen to sort of sanitize, more hygienic. Of course, during this period of time, there are a lot of contribution factors to these areas. So we felt that it's best that this especially toilet and kitchen, which is being used in a big numbers, is being taken care so that it could mitigate some of these cases.
Right. So now the most of the community are back in their homes, assessing the damage, dealing with the receding floodwaters. Can I ask you, how are you bracing for the second wave, the potential second wave of floods? Are relief organizations like yourself prepared? Are you coordinating with other NGOs, with government agencies? Are there areas or gaps or overlaps that you are concerned about?
Thank you. Thank you. It's a very good question, and I think my brief for this question or for this question would be it would be best and it would be good if other NGOs or organizations also prep themselves and to be on standby in whichever ways that you can support either Kelantan, Terengganu, Kedah, from funding to materials, donation in kind, manpower, etc., etc., whatever that you can contribute. Because for us, Mercy Malaysia, we have planned for our teams to be around right until next week, next 2 weeks. So we have the mobile clinics on standby, 3 teams now. We also have we have stockpile some food items. We have stockpile the NFI, and these have been allocated at the welfare department. We coordinate very well with the PKOB, Pusat Koordinasi Operasi Bencana, which is under purview of NATMA and also the district office. And we also work closely with PKD or the district health department in terms of health services. So by having all these teams on the ground, anticipating that 8 December onwards is going to be the second wave, we have sort of pre-planned most of our movement, our coordination with the local agencies, the local government agencies. That's very crucial, so that there'll be no duplication, there's no redundant in terms of support and in terms of services that you want to extend. It's all about complementing and it's all about closing the gap. And this is very, very important to take note, so that whatever that we do is very effective, is done effectively in an efficient manner.
Right. So for those of us who are not able to be there like the way Mercy Malaysia is on the ground, what kind of support can we provide Mercy and your team to maybe scale up your response, make it easier for you to work, particularly if I think about the vulnerable groups, the infants, the children, the pregnant women, the elderly? How can we make sure that we're helping them meet their specific needs?
All right. To be honest and to be frank, or to be bold, we need 2 things. We need the manpower, the human resource in respective specialty. We need doctors and nurses. We need people to come on board to be part of our mobile team, and of course we need the funds. So please donate and contribute to Mercy Malaysia. Of course, that is the ultimate. With the right funding and the right contribution, we on the ground could implement a very much better and impactful projects and programs. We want to do as much as we can, as much as we able to do. But of course, there are some at times funding is also a challenge. But alhamdulillah, at the moment we have our regular donors, supporters who have been contributing during this first wave. Thank you very much to those organization and group of people, and we appreciate. And in reality, this is what we are doing on the ground, and we are trying our level best to assist as many people as possible,
Right.
especially those who are affected badly.
Shah, thank you for your service and also for your time today. Appreciate your insights. Shah Fiesal Hussain from Mercy Malaysia there. We're going to take a quick break on Consider This. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Hi, welcome back to Consider This. Let's continue our conversation about the severe floods that have hit several states in the country. The Met Department has warned that a second wave is likely to hit next week. Now, joining us on the show, we have Professor Engineer Dr. Koon, who is from UiTM's School of Civil Engineering. Dr. Lee, taking a look at the magnitude of the floods that we're seeing, I mean, can it realistically be mitigated through engineering solutions, or is this something we just have to deal with in a climate challenged world, a climate crisis world? Do we have to just adapt to this unavoidable extreme weather phenomena?
Yeah, thank you, Melissa, for having me. When we talk about engineering approach, usually people think about structural method in solving the flood problem. So when engineer design structures, we are talking about how do we collect the water, how do we contain it, how do we control it, and how do we convey it, the conveyance of it to the outlet point. Now, this depends on the type of flood that we are addressing. So for example, what we are dealing with right now is monsoon flood, but we also have flash flood. In fact, that is also happening right now. Um, Flash flood will be more localized, but whereas the monsoon flood is covering a much wider area. So there is a similarity in the hydraulic, but when it comes to the engineering approach, there are other issues or details that we need to look into. Of course, we also have coastal flood, not to forget, which is related to the sea level rise, storm surge, which is the increase in the seawater level due to extreme storm event. Now, talking about flood, usually in engineering, when we mention flood, we're talking about the overflow of the river. So in this case, in order to contain the flood water within the river itself, what we need is structures such as river dikes. That means to increase the river bank in order that the water will remain flowing in the main channel rather than overflow the flood bank. We can also do river diversion, which allows the flood water to flow through an alternative path rather than flowing through a heavily populated area. Along with this, there's a very important part, which is river improvement works, because we have a lot of problem with river siltation, which means that the river carrying capacity actually is greatly reduced. And we have siltation in the river mouth as well, which deter the recession of the flood effectively. All right. And when the tailwater, which means that when we also have high tide condition in the outlet near the river mouth, then we are talking about how can we prevent the high water level in the river mouth to enter in the river itself, which is another issue. Now, whereas for flash flood, which happens here and there, that has to do with our drainage system. So our drainage system, we know that it consists of our drainage, our detention storage. Also, we have a floodgate and also pumping system to make sure that we are able to channel the water into the river. But when river itself is already flooded and we have a high water condition in the river, then we have the same problem right now in our stormwater drainage system.
Right.
So that is generally how we approach the problem.
So all the things that you've talked about, Dr. Lee, when we look at other countries who have been successful in mitigating floods, I think of the Netherlands, which is a benchmark, Japan for its flood walls and embankments. Do you think that these are strategies that Malaysia should be looking at that we can realistically replicate?
Right. In Netherlands, we know that they are famous for what they have done. Mainly is to keep the seawater out. Now, there's one big plus point, because when the seawater is not coming in and they create sufficient storage for the rainwater to be collected, then they solve the flood issue. Whereas in Japan, they have seawalls and they also have come up with huge subterranean, that means underground storage system where the stormwater can be collected. So basically what they have dealt with effectively is what we call the tailwater condition, the water level at the outlet point. Now, if we can reduce the water level at the outlet point, then we can effectively gather and channel our stormwater. But what happened in Malaysia right now in a lot of our flood-prone locations, including our fresh flood issue, is that we have high tailwater condition. For the river, it's because of the high tide. And for the stormwater system, it's because the high water level in the river. So when all this happens and we have high tailwater, that means we literally have no place for the water to go. And this becomes even exaggerated for lowland area, because in lowland area, in the first place, there isn't even a gradient for the water to flow effectively. So essentially, the water is just going to overflow and cover a wide area. Yeah.
It'll just be a
So
deluge
by the
of
way,
water.
yeah, I think we have a very good system in Malaysia. We are famous for our smart tunnel, but honestly, that is not the same scale as what we are seeing in Netherlands and in Japan. Now, in Netherlands, they came out with a system over decades, and Japan as well. The amount of investment that they actually put in to come up with all this system, that is looking at solving the problem over a long time period. And when it comes to engineering solution, we cannot run away from the fact at the end that we have to look at the cost benefit ratio.
Okay, so
That is
if we
where we have constraints. Yeah.
right, but precisely that we have limited budgets, we have competing priorities as a developing country. So where is it that Malaysia should focus its investment in terms of flood mitigation infrastructure, Dr. Lee, to achieve the greatest impact in the shortest amount of time? You mentioned decades, but we cannot wait for decades. What do you think we should do?
I wouldn't say that um, to come up with the quickest solution in the shortest amount of time is always good, because we really need a thorough study and investigation into the nature of the problem. We need to have high quality data. Right now, we have rainfall data, but we're also talking about projection of climate change, which is highly variable. We can be over conservative, or we can underestimate what's going to happen in the future. Now, we need high quality data of our river basin, of our urban area, of our river channel cross section. All these takes a lot of time and cost together, and they are still changes that continuously taking place. In terms of short-term solution, definitely what the government has been doing is that usually before the monsoon, they would have pre-monsoon preparation. That is a good thing. That includes what the local government has to do, the inspection work on all the floodgate, the embankment, and things like this. But other than that, we should not forget that there's another option, which is a non-structural approach. Okay, now in terms of non-structural approach, we're talking about flood monitoring, flood forecasting, and the warning system, which has been put in place in a number of locations in Malaysia. And the government, led by the Department of Drainage and Irrigation Malaysia, has been doing this. And that is where engineers come in and contribute our expertise in how to best be able to help the people to know when this is happening. But of course, not all residents are willing to evacuate when given the information, and we can be overly optimistic if we can have solution to come with to a zero flood condition. It is not something that people like to hear, but at some locations they just might have to live with flood, which means that yes, we will have to consider adaptation strategies. Things like especially after a flood event, how do we rebuild, and how do we rebuild resilience, and how do we rebuild so that we can use innovation to overcome what might be happening again in near future.
Dr. Lee, thank you so much for your insights. I appreciate your time. That was Professor Engineer Dr. Lee Koon from UiTM School of Civil Engineering. Another quick break here on Consider This. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Hi, welcome back to Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris. Let's speak now to Dr. Nur Eliza Alias, who is lecturer at the Faculty of Civil Engineering at University Technology Malaysia. She's also the group leader of the Hydraulics and Hydrology Research Group. Dr. Eliza, thank you for being on the show. 10 years ago, in December 2014, Kelantan was hit by the worst floods it had ever seen at that point in time. Now, you have done research on the Bakuning floods. Do you see any similar patterns in the current floods, any similarities or differences?
Okay, thank you, Melisa. And that's really a good, really important question for us to understand the current situations of the 2024 floods. So, similarities that I have found is very particular to the climatic patterns. Uh, yeah, climatic patterns, we experience these patterns. For example, La Nina, El Nino, or we also call it as ENSO. Before in 2014, we experienced the another type of pattern which we have identified. It's called the Madden-Julian oscillation. So that pattern occurred in 2014. But now, 2024, there's another really large climatic pattern as well, which is the La Nina. So both events, it's a combination of the monsoon and also this climatic pattern, which this pattern makes the rainfall more intense.
Okay, so there are weather patterns that you see that are similar, but if we were to look at the 2014 floods, the 2014 tragedy, are there lessons that we can take from that, lessons that we can learn to deal with today's disaster?
Yes, definitely. We learned many things actually. Since 2014, I think the disaster management agencies such as NADMA and other supporting agencies such as Met Malaysia, Department of Irrigation and Department of Irrigation and Drainage, or DID. So what I have observed is that especially on the warnings, if you realize in 2014, I think compared to our current situation, extensive warnings. If you realize, more extensive warnings were being delivered by the Met Malaysia DID, especially through social medias. So I mean, people are now more prone to social medias. So I think that's are the things that I think we have learned and improved since 2014.
Okay, so the kind of warning system, the looking at whether or not we can kind of predict essentially the incoming weather patterns. We have Met Malaysia warning of a potential second wave next week. Now, I'm just wondering whether we can use engineering solutions to mitigate some of the flooding or the scale of the flooding. We may not be able to solve the flood problems of Malaysia, given that what you just said about the climatic patterns, but can we significantly mitigate some of the problems through engineering solutions?
Yes, Melissa, of course, it's a whole field of that, especially in civil engineering. So in civil engineering, we have, for example, the hydraulics, hydrologies. So yes, there are several measures for mitigation. For example, as also proposed by previous experts like Professor Zulkifli Yusuf of UiTM and UPM, the news and the sharing of them. For example, constructing dams and underground storage. However, issues here when we design using present data. For example, when we design, we use present present data. So what we need is also, and I think DID as well already have these measures to consider for future aspects. For example, the climate change factors in design. We need to consider climate change factors so that what we design now can also be used, and we hope that it can cater for future weathers, because the climate is changing. So of course the rainfall distribution is also changing. However, what is the message in design is that we might not 100% eliminate that flood, but we can at least reduce the flood and reduce the impact.
For sure. Dr. Eliza, thank you so much for being on the show with me today and sharing some of your insights. I appreciate your time. Dr. Noor Eliza Alias from UiTM, wrapping up this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching and good night.